Continuing our coverage of 2025 Fenway Fest, the newest iteration of the Winter Fest, moving into the ballpark now. Take a look back at the 2024 season, a 500 season. Step in the right direction, if you will, after back-to-back losing records, but not making the playoffs, finishing third in the AL East and trying to improve on that in the year ahead. The man in charge of putting together a team to do that joins us now. Greg Breslow, Chief Baseball Officer of the Red Sox. You're over a year into it now, and this is your second. It was Winter Weekend last year. Now it's this. Besides the feel-good vibes at a Winterfest like this, is there a tangible benefit to get these guys together and sort of feel the pulse of this group in person for the first time?
I think so. We've got some new players, obviously, but also some new coaches. And getting everyone together, and especially getting everyone together at Fenway Park in Boston, I think is really advantageous for us. We'll have some meetings and get the coaching staff aligned with some new initiatives that we want to roll out. But just getting players together, getting them talking about baseball, seeing the progress that they've made this offseason has been really exciting.
Garrett Crochet, obviously one of the big new names here. Talk a little about putting that deal together. I remember in Dallas at the winter meetings, you said you got to do uncomfortable things to get better. Well, trading 4 prospects can be uncomfortable. We know that. How it came together, and how happy are you to have him here with this group?
Yeah, so starting with the reality that we're thrilled that he's a part of this organization. And, we've got a legitimate number one starter and someone that we think can pitch alongside guys like Tanner and Brian and Cutter and Lucas and others. And this trade, actually, some of the initial conversations started last offseason. Crochet was a guy that I had come to really admire and respect, even going back to when he was an amateur and I was with the Cubs, and we were talking about him in the draft. And obviously nothing came together last December, January, and then around the trade deadline, conversations started up again. And because Chris and I had gone back and forth so many times, we had a good understanding of kind of what the general parameters were, who the players in our system that they really liked would be. And then it just became a matter of really pushing on both sides to get to a place where we were kind of equally uncomfortable making a deal. But I've used this line before that it's important to think about the player that we're getting back and not the players that we're sending out, because we are sending out good players who are going to go on to have good major league careers. But this is a player that we needed at this moment in time.
He talked about adding the cutter and the sinker late, the sinker especially over the last couple of starts. How much more of a complete pitcher do you think he can be this year than maybe he was at the start of last year?
Yeah, I think he's still developing. I think he's still developing physically, and then as a starting pitcher. Right? Last year was the first time that he started as in a full season over the course of the year, and we saw the development of the arsenal. The sinker in particular is got a really unique profile. The pitch data on it is fantastic, and that is on top of someone who's got an elite four-seam fastball and a wipeout slider to both sides.
So you don't take the fastball away, right? And we didn't throw a lot of fastballs last year, not a lot of four-seamers. You adapt to the pitching you have, right? There's no mandate to not throw four-seamers, just to make it clear.
Right. You don't take away the left-handed 100-mile-an-hour plus four-seam fastball.
That's smart. He's 25 years old, and AC was here before, and he was saying one of the exciting things is you start to look all over the diamond, all over the dugout. A lot of young players who are going to impact this team. The goal for a couple years now has been to build something that can compete and do it sustainably. Do you feel you're getting closer to where you want to be in that regards?
I think so. Every organization talks about sustainability as the goal, right? We want to avoid the peaks and valleys that have maybe plagued this organization for some amount of time, even going back to when I was lucky enough to be a member of the 2013 World Series championship team, but that World Series victory was sandwiched between 2 last place finishes. And I do think because of the great work of the player development system, the amateur scouting and international scouting departments, the pro scouting department, and our major league coaches, we have players who have established themselves in the big leagues, young, athletic, dynamic players. We've got a wave of talent behind them. And I think this is a really exciting opportunity for the organization. I think it's a really exciting window for the organization.
When you get a pitcher who's 25 years old, has 2 years left of control, everybody immediately starts talking about an extension. Take us into that process, and has there been any discussions or plans yet to begin discussions?
Yeah, I mean, trying to kind of stay away from specifics. Obviously, when you have someone as uniquely talented as Garrett is, and someone at this age, and we feel like is going to help our team in the short term and potentially can help our team in the long term, it's something that we absolutely have to be open to. But they also have to be open to it as well. And, I think Garrett and I are still getting to know each other. And by all accounts, his introduction to Boston, to the Red Sox, and to our fans has been spectacular. So, I think those are conversations that we'll pick up.
You add someone at the top of the rotation, you make yourself better right away. You follow that up by adding Walker Buehler. Last we saw, he was getting the final out of the World Series, which is always a nice final memory of a year for somebody. Talk a little about what he brings to this team, and adding a guy who with his experience, doesn't just bring the stuff, but brings the knowledge and that veteran presence that can always help a team.
Yeah, so Walker obviously has established himself, as a front of the rotation starting pitcher at times in LA, and then battled some injuries, and he'll be the first to say that most of this season didn't go exactly as he had wanted it, but it culminated in this special moment for him getting the last out of the World Series, right? And when we had initial conversations with him and Zoom calls, and I spoke to him and Bale spoke to him, we realized that this was a complete pitcher and a complete addition to the organization, in that he's kind of been through it all. He's got a level of competitiveness that I think is going to raise the rotation. And we saw some things trending in the right direction toward the end of the season that we felt like were sticky, and reason to believe that there's a really, really strong likelihood that he can get back to the guy that was a dominant starting pitcher in this league.
But you've also added to the bullpen, obviously. Some sort of quiet. Justin Wilson was added. You had Michael Fulmer rehabbing, and he's getting closer, obviously. Liam Hendricks is back. Garrett Whitlock is coming back. So there's a lot of guys who weren't involved in 2024, and then you had Aroldis Chapman to that group. How do you feel about where the bullpen is, and do you think you can still add to that? Because obviously there's a lot of relievers still out there.
Yeah, so, would not hide from the fact that our bullpen at times last year was, showed some cracks, and we didn't preserve leads in the way that I think playoff teams do, and that was something that we set out to address early on in the offseason. Feel like we've made some upgrades, and particularly upgrades in terms of our ability to generate swings and misses, and just raise the level of kind of pure stuff that we have out there. When you think about that, Aroldis Chapman is kind of the embodiment of it, right? Another guy with an elite fastball that we have no plans to take away, and a league-leading whiff rates. And so I think we're going to be able to call on any number of guys to get strikeouts when we need to, and strand runners. But do I think that there's an opportunity to continue to upgrade the bullpen? I do. It's January. The opening day is still several months away, and we'll continue to work to find ways to improve our roster.
Reports are that Hoffman signed, and I think we've, in the media anyway, we kind of been watching and waiting for the run on relievers to start. We saw it happen. Max Fried signed, name started to move. Do you think now action starts to go with some of those free agent relievers?
Most likely, but it's always hard to try and forecast, when a market will start to move, because players make decisions for so many different reasons, and, whether that is waiting to kind of find the right destination because of loyalty or family, or because they're looking for the right deal or the right term. And so, we've been actively engaged in conversations. We'll continue to do that, but feel like there's an opportunity to add to the bullpen.
I want to ask about the process every year. When you got a young team, you're going to have guys coming up with arbitration opportunities. You got most of them done. You haven't settled with Jaren Duran yet. The reports are $500,000 apart. Take us through what happens once those numbers come out. You sort of have that period between now and the arbitration hearing. Sort of take us through that process a little bit, how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be unfair, irresponsible to kind of speak to details, and out of respect to Jaren, I'll kind of avoid doing that. Arbitration is it's an imperfectly rigid system that determines salaries, and I think the most important thing here is to acknowledge that Jaren is an incredibly talented player who is going to have a pivotal role on our team and in this organization for a really long time. and he and I have a great relationship. We speak regularly. It's just that this is kind of a construct that we have to go through. But at the end of the day, we are really excited about what Jaren Duran is going to bring to the field and to this team in 2025.
Because of the way it works, though, they can go sideways. Have you spoken with him since the numbers came out? Take us sort of behind it without getting into details of the negotiation. Is everything good? Because I think people are worried that you guys are mad at each other.
I talked to him yesterday.
Okay.
No surprise. He called me back after he was finished with a lift, which I didn't realize was going to be about 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
I asked him if he always lifts for 4.5 hours, and he said yes. And actually, that's the reason he looks like he does, and I look the way I do. But no, we have a great relationship. I have tremendous respect for him, and I've been through this on the other side, and I know how these things can go sideways. We have no interest in that.
There are names out there. One particularly, I don't know if you saw it when we were down. The guy had the sign, "Make an offer to Bregman." And I noticed a few of your players taking pictures of the guy with that sign, probably to send to Alex Bregman,
or to send to me,
or to send to you, or to send to all of the above. It feels, I said, very different, but it feels like a little bit like last year with some of the pitchers who were out there, right? You're waiting to see if anybody would sign, right? So Snell and Montgomery just kind of kept hanging. Now you got Bregman who's kind of hanging out there. He clearly would be a fit, but it doesn't mean that you can just go out and demand that Alex Bregman sign a contract with you. When a guy is out there and there's so much smoke, does that mean there's fire? Tell us about, we know what Alex Bregman can do. We've seen him, and we showed this reel with Alex Cora before. Our editors did a great job because it's pull-side homer after pull-side homer after pull-side homer. It's just, you just picture the wall underneath those balls sailing over. But take us into that negotiation when, the musical chairs game, right? A lot of free agents are gone. So it's no longer, well, it's this guy or this guy or this guy. There's one guy out there, or you can trade, or you can do nothing, right? And it's not as easy as we'll just go after A, and if that doesn't work, we go to B, right? There's things happening at the same time that you can go in different directions.
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, I'm not going to get into specifics about individual free agents. My job is to put the best team together that I possibly can, that we possibly can, in 2025 and beyond. And we've been quite outspoken about the need to prioritize the 2025 part to a greater extent than the beyond part relative to maybe how we've operated in other off seasons. I think what we've done so far has been indicative of that. And we'll continue to look at how we can improve the roster. There are a number of paths to do that. We feel pretty good about the rotation that we put together. We just talked quite a bit about opportunities to improve the relief core, and I've talked about balancing out the lineup, a right-handed hitter, someone who can take advantage of the dynamics of Fenway Park, and that tends to be right-handed hitters who hit the ball in the air to the pull side. And I think it's potentially foolish to kind of create just one path. We have to be open to multiple pathways, but when there are opportunities to improve the team, we're going to look to be aggressive to do that.
I feel there's been a lot of changes in the American League East. The Corbin Burns is gone. That's a big change in the American League East, right? But in general, do you feel when you assemble the group in Fort Myers, and more importantly, when you leave Fort Myers, that this is a team that will be positioned to try to contend for an American League East title?
I do, and that has been what has driven our decision making for the entirety of this offseason, was to put together a team that we felt could compete for the division and that could make a deep playoff run. I feel really good about the progress that we've made thus far. I think we've addressed a number of holes in the roster, but I think the offseason is incomplete. I think there's going to be opportunities for us to continue to improve.
You got to see your first glimpse of the Netflix specials today. Are you watching this with kind of a squinted eye, like waiting to see what's coming down?
I know that I had spent a fair amount of time in front of the camera, that I was mic'd up for a number of interviews, and I'm hoping they all get cut.
But it is an interesting, right? No team has ever dealt with this before. You're going to have storylines and things that happen on the Netflix doc that have nothing to do really with this year, but you'll probably be talking about it because, right, reporters are going to ask questions about something they see on Netflix. There's kind of the final step of this whole process is reacting to what the final product is, right? And no team has ever dealt with that before.
Right. The access is unprecedented. And I think what our hope is, what the hope out of this is, people understand how spectacularly complicated baseball players are, a baseball season is, baseball decisions are. We're going to get a lot of them wrong. That's one thing that will come out of this. But we are always striving to make the best decisions that we can with the information we have available at that moment in time. And I think it's important for baseball that people get this access, that fans get this access to understand what a 162-game season looks like, to understand that players don't show up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock for a 7:05 game.
Would Craig Breslow, the pitcher, have been receptive to cameras everywhere?
I would have had a really hard time, I think. I played most of my career kind of with this underdog anonymous status, and doing anything that might have brought me more to the forefront would probably have been incredibly uncomfortable.
To me, that's the fascinating thing, right? We talked with Greg about it before, and he's going to join us in a little bit, but you've got 26 plus guys, and they all, Tristan Casas is seeking out the camera, right? He loves that entertainment part of the game. Other guys, like you, maybe as a pitcher, really don't want anything to do with it. And I think that's what's fascinating, how that all comes together over this 8-episode series.
Well, I think what our fans are learning is that Tristan, he gravitates to the camera. He has an appetite for that, but he's also an incredibly interesting guy, and he's got a great story to tell. And if I were open to that level of attention, I think the reality is more people would have just realized I'm pretty boring.
Well, you come on with us every Wednesday during the season, so we'll help get that word out. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
All right, work to do still. I'll let you get back to it. Spring training, still weeks away. Plenty of time. And like we said, it's not what you have going to spring training. It's what you have coming out of spring training. What we have at Fenway today is snow. Perfect background. For 2025 Fenway Fest, our coverage continues after this. Stay with us.